With all the horrific sexual harassment and assault scandals over the last few years, young men are terrified of upsetting a woman, crossing her boundaries, or putting her in an uncomfortable situation. So guys come to me all the time nervous about introducing themselves to women, or showing interest on a date, or going for a kiss, because they don't want to hurt anyone and they don't want to end up in those same situations. But unfortunately, we know that in most courtship scenarios, the guy is expected to take the lead, and that's also what, more often than not, women find attractive. So you have to learn how to take these romantic opportunities, but just in a healthy way. And the funny thing is that the men who are usually most worried about, doing something wrong to a woman are not the ones who are actually going to be a problem. They are not the guys who are randomly going to say something lewd on a date or grope a girl's butt and really get themselves in a lot of trouble. But there are some behaviors that you might not realize you're doing that can come across as intense to women, and today I want to teach you what those are so you can avoid future problems. Don't try to date people that work under you or are your subordinates. This has gotten so many people into trouble, and even though at times it can work out and it can be mutual, the waters get muddy, the power dynamics are really complicated, and in general, I just think it's not worth it. If you are interested in somebody that's just in your work, then don't flirt on the job. Be warm to them, be friendly, hang out at the break room, maybe go to lunch together as a group, and show that person that you are an open, warm, easy person to talk to, and then at some point, just invite them to do something outside of work. Once you're outside of work, game on, you can start treating it like a romantic date, but just don't do it while you're inside the workplace. Don't set false expectations. What I mean is, if you know that you want a certain type of connection, whether that's just casual sex or a long-term relationship, then you should start being upfront with people relatively early on. It doesn't need to be the first date, but as you two are getting to know each other and maybe you have a few dates, and especially if things start getting intimate, it's your responsibility to check in with somebody and say, hey, I'm just curious, what are you looking for in general? And to start to tell them your expectations as well and not try to obscure them. I know it's really uncomfortable because maybe you're really attracted to someone and you have great sex, but you're not looking for a relationship and you're worried that if you tell them that you're going to lose that chance with them. Now, while that is a possibility, if they absolutely think that this is turning into something, and you're not going to do that, then eventually they're going to get hurt, they're going to resent you, they're going to blame you, and you're going to get into a lot of But funny enough, when you tell people what you're looking for, they start to accept that and they actually trust you more. So even if they weren't initially expecting this type of connection, they're a lot more open to it because they know what they're getting. And so maybe even though they wanted a long-term relationship, they're down to hook up with someone casually that they can trust until they find a more serious partner. Follow the 3 strikes rule. What that means is if you're talking to someone and you're messaging them and they stop responding, or you invite them out and they never give you an answer or never really commit, then after you do that twice, maybe 3 times at most, you should get the hint and move on. Do not keep pursuing this person because at this point, they know what you're looking for. And if they're not into you, then just continuing to pester them is not going to change that, but instead make them feel like you're smothering them or you're just not going to stop. And that's where things get sticky. Never, ever, ever show up to somebody's job or home unannounced. I don't know where this came from in Hollywood movies as some wonderful gesture where this guy that you met one time and maybe you didn't respond to him suddenly shows up at your work and starts hanging out with you in front of your coworkers, and that's somehow sweet. In the real world, it never works like that. It is totally fucking weird and uncomfortable. These places are generally seen as our personal or safe spaces. And if you come in unexpected, then you're kind of violating that. And if they don't want you around or they're not interested, then you put them in an uncomfortable situation where they have to somehow get you away from there and hope that you don't come back. Especially don't do this if you haven't heard back from the person and you're like, oh, I'll just show up and maybe they didn't respond for a reason or maybe that'll re-spark things. Absolutely not. That is the worst time to do it. The only time you show up to somebody's work or home is when they've told you themselves that they want you to come by. When a woman says to stop contacting her if she's not interested, stop contacting her. Do not try to ask her why she didn't like you. Come on, give me another chance. Try to guilt trip her, manipulate her, or pressure her. It's not going to work. And this isn't some temporary wall that you just have to keep chipping away at and eventually she'll realize how charming you are. No, take it at face value. She does not want you to keep contacting her, so listen until she reaches out proactively herself and wants to re-engage. The literal definition of harassment is aggressive pressure or intimidation. What do you think the actions of continuing to reach out implies? Never get intimate with somebody for the first time if they're really intoxicated. Now I get it. People have been having drunk hookups and sex for thousands of years everywhere. Hell, right now, dozens of people are doing the same exact thing. And can it be healthy and mutual? Yes, I do think so. But it is something that is really complicated and really hard to read, and people regret their decisions, and they make the decisions when they didn't really feel in full control of them. And I think it's just better to try to hook up the next time when you're both a little more sober. Because if somebody actually likes you, they're going to sleep with you the next time. They're not just going to be like, oh, we didn't hook up this one time, forget this person, never again. Of course, being drunk or heavily intoxicated is nuanced. If somebody has one drink, they're well under the legal limit, and in my mind, they're generally in control of their faculties. But if somebody's slurring their words, and they're stumbling, and they're all wobbly, and they're getting really loud, then definitely that is not the right time to move things to the bedroom. And often it's good to get ahead of that, where if you are starting to drink, then at some point you say, how about we just relax and talk for a bit? Or what if we stop drinking for a little bit and just hang out? Now I'm going to remind you one more time because it's really hard when somebody's throwing themselves at you. If you know this person is really drunk and it's the first time you're hooking up, do not give in. It is too gray. If they are throwing themselves at you, if they're saying they're fine, if they're saying they want you more than anything, if they're like putting their hands on you, I still think you should let them gently down and say, hey, listen, I want nothing more than right now to like undress you and hook up with you and have an amazing night, but I just don't think it's the right time. And if somebody really gets super pissed off that you didn't want to do it and they don't want to see you again, then it's still the right decision and it wasn't the right person. The right person will recognize you have good intentions and see that as really sexy and be more excited for the next time. And on the flip side, limit your alcohol intake when you're with somebody for those first times as well. Because as we get more drunk, what happens? Our inhibitions get lowered, we become way more forward, we become way more aggressive, we say things we don't mean, and we miss all the subtle body language cues and all those things to be able to accurately assess a situation. So either limit your intake, or if you went too far that night, try to remind yourself just to hang out and not take things forward. In my mind, it's best to go into dates and set a hard limit for yourself saying, hey, I'm going to have 2 drinks over 3 hours and that's it. I can't believe I have to say this, but no unannounced displays of genitals. Do not send women that you just met or you're talking to online pictures of your junk. It's not hot to just see a random dong just hanging out there. It can feel really pervy and really creepy, and I'm telling you, almost never does a woman get a random unsolicited pic like that and suddenly go, oh my god, that's so hot, that's so wonderful, I'm totally into this now. They know what your stuff looks like. That's not what's gonna get them going. In fact, that's what's going to get you into really hot water. Give someone permission to set their boundaries or say no during foreplay or sex. So as things are heating up, it's natural that people at some point may feel a certain resistance to moving forward. Maybe they're not ready yet in that moment, maybe they're not ready that day altogether, or maybe they just want to keep it to making out and doing some over-the-clothes stuff. So as you're starting to hook up with someone and you're in bed and you're fooling around a little bit, it's not a bad idea to just say, hey, listen, I want to have an amazing night with you right now, but I'll only go as far as you're ready. Or I want to touch you all over, but tell me if you want me to slow down or need more time. A lot of men are afraid of getting ahead of that because they don't want things to end. But again, if she's not ready, then you should want things to end and not to push forward. But most of the time, when you let someone know that you're conscious of their boundaries and you respect them, then that actually makes them trust you more and be more open to exploring intimacy with you. And that leads me to be mindful of body language when you're making a move in general. So maybe you're on a date and you're touching someone or you're going for a kiss, and all you have to do is don't overcomplicate this. Just see that when you're touching them or getting close, are they, still facing you? Is their body language open? Are they warm to you? Do they seem excited? Do they stay close? Do they let your hand touch them? Or do they back away? Do they start to close off? Do they turn their body? Do they take a step back? Do they move your hand off them? And that's generally a sign that they're not ready or comfortable, at least at this time. And if you're unsure, it's fine to say, are you okay with this, or do you want to keep going? And just to check in. And here's my next point. If you get a verbal no to any of your advances, then you stop immediately. So if you are trying to touch a woman or go for a kiss and she says, hey, sorry, I'm not feeling that, or I don't kiss on the first date, or could you not? Then that is the most clear sign that you need to stop and she does not want anything else to happen. There's no other way to interpret that. And in those instances, you do not continuing to make a move or show interest unless she reinitiates and shows interest herself or tells you, hey, you know what? I'm actually feeling a little better. Come here. Basically, you're done trying to move things forward for that date. And if there is another one, then you can try to pick things back up then. Don't use any tactics or pressure or manipulation to try to get a woman to sleep with you when you're in the bed together. So let's say you're back at your place and things are heating up and suddenly she puts the brakes on and she says, hey, can we just chill out and hang out right now? And in your mind, you're like, damn, this sucks. I thought we were going to have sex and now it's not going to happen. And a lot of men in those scenarios, they try to find some way to move things forward. And a lot of times it's because they've heard terrible advice online on how to do this. So they will be like, okay, come on, I thought we were having a good time, or it's going to be a lot of fun, just relax. Or they'll actually pull away and get a little upset and give the girl a cold shoulder so that maybe she feels bad about it and she starts to reinitiate. Or the woman puts up a boundary, the guy will wait 5 minutes, then he'll try again, then the girl rebuffs the advances again, and he's like, oh cool, no problem, and then he'll try again a few minutes later. And sure, have some guys use these tactics to convince a woman to sleep with them? Yes, but in almost every instance, that woman felt pressured and she feels a lot of shame after, and even the next day she feels a lot of regret, and that is never the way you want to start a connection. When you're doing these sorts of tactics, you're showing a woman you prioritize your need for sex in that moment over her comfort. And last, don't message a woman's coworkers or friends to try to convince her to get back with you or to reach back out to you unless you're actually really close personal friends with those people. In those instances, you think, oh, well, if I reach out to her friends, which I met once or twice, then they'll try to go to bat for me and help me out. In reality, they're her friends, and what they care about most is her comfort level. So if they know that she's not into you or doesn't want to respond, they're not going to see you in a favorable light. They're going to message this girl and tell them, hey, this dude is reaching out to me randomly and being kind of weird and trying to convince me to get you to talk to him. And that's only going to solidify in a woman's mind that you're an intense person and not the guy she should be talking to. I don't even know if I've ever seen this work once. Going to talk to somebody or showing interest in them is not likely to upset them. When you're actually going to get in trouble with someone is when you lie to them, when they set boundaries and you disrespect them, or you can't take no for an answer. And if you do just that, I promise you're not going to end up on the 6 o'clock news. And if you want to keep dating smarter, give us a thumbs up, hit that little notification bell, and click the subscribe button.